Good afternoon, everyone. I, Pooja Khanna, Ehsaas woman of Dehradun, welcome you all to the Right Circle organized by Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Today's event is in association with hospitality and venue partner Hyatt Regency Dehradun Resort and Spa and media partner Dainik Jagran. This event is held under the gracious patronage of Sri Cement Limited. The Right Circle is an initiative of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, serves as a vibrant platform within the Foundation's literary endeavors. This initiative was created to bring together authors and readers of English literature in a close, engaging and an informal setting. Each session is thoughtfully crafted around the life and works of the featured author, culminating in an interactive dialogue with a discerning audience. This evening, we have the privilege of hosting a captivating conversation between writer, designer, and an entrepreneur, Aishwarya Jha, and a seasoned conversationalist, Pooja Poddar Marwah, Ehsaas woman of Dehradun. A heartiest welcome to both of you. Before we begin what promises to be a fascinating conversation, let me take a moment to briefly introduce the Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Prabha Khaitan Foundation is a non-profit trust based in Kolkata. It was established by the late Dr. Prabha Khaitan, an eminent literature, philanthropist, a social worker and an industrialist. Prabha Khaitan Foundation began a glorious journey of encouraging literary cultural heritage back in the 1980s. Guided by the philosophies and policies of the founder, late Dr. Prabha Khaitan, the foundation has achieved stellar heights in creating a cultural capital through landmark initiatives and activities. It's been a continual journey since then, and all its initiatives have become landmark events that enjoy a unique identity and a niche audience. We are elated to share that 3-time Grammy Award winner, Vicky Cage, the mastermind behind the anthem and signature caller tune of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, has curated a number of remarkable musical pieces. Of the video invitees to our events, the Foundation's social media platforms and communications across India and overseas. The music of the month for September is The Magic of Today is the Science of Tomorrow. A musical piece that reminds us never to lose our childlike fascination, to learn and never to stop believing in miracles. To raise awareness in the community, we highlight one pressing social issue every month. The cause of the month for September is Empower Minds, Illuminate Futures, in commemoration of International Literacy Day celebrated annually on the 8th of September. Now, let's turn our focus to the two extraordinary women who will lead today's conversation. Our guest of honor, Aishwarya Jha, is a writer, a designer, and an entrepreneur from Delhi, a mentee at the Asian Women Writers Program. Her poetry, short fiction, and essays have been published in numerous literary journals and an anthology at Oxford University. She has also written, directed, and starred in a plethora of one-act plays which have been performed around the world. Aishwarya lives with her family and an army of dogs. May I please request Aishwarya to grace the stage. In conversation with Aishwarya Jha is Pooja Poddar Marwah, a successful professional in her own right. She is an author and a businesswoman and is an Ehsaas woman of Dehradun. Pooja, requesting you to please join Aishwarya. Without further ado, I request Pooja to kickstart the conversation. And a gentle reminder to the audience to please put your phones on silent. Over to you, Pooja.
Thank you so much. Aishwarya here signifies what secretly all of us women are and want. No offense to any of the men in the audience, but I think somewhere my husband will agree that we women somewhere want it all. We want the bakery, the cake, the cute looking baker, icing cherry, everything. And given the amount of work you have done and continue to do so, I think that really holds true. So it's such a pleasure to have you with us in Dehradun, Aishwarya. Thank you for being here.
Fiction is something that I really enjoy, and I think that given the chance to meet the writer, before you read the book, reading the book becomes even more exciting for me. It's a personal opinion, because I feel as a fiction writer specifically, there are shades and facets of you in the book, like when you're reading it. So what were you thinking? Okay, before we talk about the book, let's go a little bit back into how you started. You worked first at Hermes, right?
Yeah, I was working at Hermes when I was 19.
Okay.
Because I did the London School of Economics International program so that I could take my exams at the British Council and all, because I really wanted to work. I really wanted to have that experience. Because I really feel like the best learning is when you're on the job. So rather than, of course, one has to get your degree and, you have to sit in the classroom, but I really wanted to be out there in the world. I always said there's so many things I want to do, so many things I'm interested in, so let me just go out and start doing that.
So how did that come about?
Hermes, because I was introduced to someone who worked with Hermes, and I think I had met her for an internship at some point, and that didn't work out. But then a couple of months later, she's like, "Hey, I used to be interested in working with Hermes," and I was like, "Let me think about it." Yeah. And obviously, I was completely starstruck, because I was like, "Oh wow, Hermes, this French luxury brand, and I love fashion and all that." So then she said, "We have this position available," and it was a very junior position. Of course, I was 19, so it was a fashion associate. But I really got to see the behind the scenes of how this huge MNC, this huge conglomerate, how it functions. And of course, it's not as glamorous behind the scenes, because nothing is.
Right? They always say, even in Bollywood, they say, what they showcase on was, but then that's social media as well.
Yeah, so absolutely, exactly. So, it was a bit disillusioning in that way, but it was also, I think I learned a lot from working there. And the one big thing that I learned was that I don't want to work in this typical corporate kind of environment. Like, I hated that thing of, you have to go and you have to sign in every day. I'm reaching at this time. I'm always late, as everyone knows. Yeah. That didn't work for me. And, you have to sign out at this time, and, everything is so structured. And I like to do things at my own pace. Like, that's why I was doing LSE's international program also, right? Because I like to study at my own pace. I like to work at my own pace. So it really taught me that. So I feel I was lucky that at a young age, I at least got this clarity that this is something I don't want to do. I used to call it death by corporate. Rather than death by chocolate. But it was a good experience.
It was an experience, but you didn't really like it, safe to say.
Yeah, I didn't like the structure.
The structure,
yeah. And also I felt like, with a lot of foreign brands, and I don't want to be controversial here, but there is a difference in how they are with their Indian employees, how they are with their French employees, and things like that. And it's very like, oh, this is how we do it in France, and this, that, the other. So, that didn't really work very well.
A hint of racism,
yeah, definitely. I don't want to say.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So then and after that you went into interiors?
Yeah, so after that, I set up my own company with my brother and one or two more people, and we were doing a bunch of different things. So we were doing events, we were doing interiors, because I've always had a passion. Company would approach us, and for instance, for one client, we set up a whole company from start to finish. So we sourced the products for her, we negotiated the agreements, we got all these brands into India, which is not easy because there's so many rules and regulations. Then the warehousing, the shipping, the marketing, all of that. So from start to finish, we would take care of it.
So what industry was it? When you say you set up the entire business, it's just that, she walked up to, or they walk up to you and say that this is what I want to do, and then you take it start to end?
Yeah, so this was in the beauty and wellness sector. So She already had a company that worked with organic products, natural and organic products, but she wanted to get into the beauty space, for instance. And I have a huge interest in like beauty and cosmetics and things like that. And at that time, it was sort of at the beginning of when people were getting into this clean beauty, clean eating, clean living kind of thing, you know. So yeah, exactly, organic things like that. So then we introduced a bunch of companies to India, these brands for the first time, and also that was again, it was a lot of hard work. You know, nothing is as glamorous and exciting behind the scenes, but you learn a lot. And I always felt like, okay, I'm just thrown into these situations, and I have to find my feet, and I have to find a way to learn how to do it. And that's like how my mother's always brought me up with this thing of you can do anything. So, you know, like whatever situation you find yourself in, you just have to figure out how to do it. So I think that's been good for me.
Self-belief is a big one, you know. I'm glad that, you know, your mom kind of pushed you to it, but I think it's really, really important. If you don't believe in yourself, you can't really do anything that you set out to. So great, yeah, really, really amazing stuff that you have done. How did writing, because it's so different from what you have done, so how did you decide on, okay, that's it, I want to sit and write?
Well, I always wanted to write. So you know how as a child in school, like every child has their talents. You know, somebody is good at sports, I'm terrible at sports. Somebody is good at maths and science, I'm terrible at maths and science. Somebody is good at singing, somebody is good at dancing, something like that. So I always felt, and this was reinforced by, you know, my teachers or people around me, and I because I enjoyed books so much, I thought, okay, I'm good at writing. This is my talent over here. And obviously then, you know, you go into these bookstores and you get that amazing fragrance of books and wood and varnish, and it's so magical. And so I felt like, oh God, one day I want to have a book in one of these stores. So when I was a teenager, I used to write a lot of poetry and short fiction and essays and all, and I started submitting them to international literary journals. And of course, if you submit things, there's a lot of rejection that comes with it, and you know, so that can be a little disheartening. But I persevered because it was something I was so passionate about, and you know, over time I did have some pieces published, so I felt more confident. And I did start writing a book once when I was in my early 20s, and that didn't go anywhere. But then when the idea for this book came to me, which was like a whole lightning, thunder kind of moment, I realized over time that okay, this is going to be the book that I'm going to write. So it was always a dream of mine.
To write a book or to do poetry? Because you started with poetry, right?
Yeah, so I did short stories as well as poetry, and I think that writing poetry has really helped me with my fiction as well. You know, and maybe you'll see when you read the book, because a lot of people tell me this, that they find a lot of poetry in the prose that I write also, which is, I love poetry, you know, I feel like I love words, so I used to always, and I still do, you know, I love to read about writing, I love to improve and sharpen my skills all the time, because I just think words are so powerful, you know, whether they're written or spoken or whatever. I also wanted to write books, I wanted to write novels, and maybe in the future, non-fiction, a poetry book, you never know.
That's great. That's really, really nice. So would you like to share one of your favorite pieces of prose or poetry with us?
Well, I can, in the epigraph for my book, I don't know if you've seen it, it's this poem by Fairs. I mean, I'll be happy to read it out. I read it in English because if I will butcher it. Unless if you would like to read the English. No, go for it. I'll leave it to you. So this is from a poem by Fairs, and he says, "In the desert of my solitude, my love, with such tenderness has your memory placed its hand upon my heart, that although it is the dawn of farewell, it feels like the day of separation has passed, and the night of our union has arrived." It's so beautiful.
It is. It's really, really pretty. So your book, The Scent of Fallen Stars, has a dual timeline, which I thought was really exciting, especially because I'm a 90s kid. I know you are too.
Yes.
Yeah. And growing up in the 90s versus, say, you know, between 1995 is where the first part of the book is, and then 2018 is where the second part is. I think the world at large went through a digital invasion of sorts. You know, so what do you think is, you know, as a 90s kid, when you were writing the 90s part, what really touched you? Because you grew up with it, you felt it. So how did you put that into words? Or was it very easy for you?
No, I don't think it was very easy actually because, like you said, I was so moved by the 90s always and all this nostalgia for it, and I really wanted to sort of capture this moment in history where we were on, you know, it was post liberalization and we were sort of on the verge of changing as a country, you know, and before this whole digital invasion came in, like you said, I feel it was a very special moment in time, you know, where you know, like when the first time Cartoon Network came on our TVs, you know,
Yes,
and the first McDonald's was opened, and you know, all those like sort of primitive, now they seem prehistoric, those social media sites that we were on and all. I think it was cassettes, yes, and floppies, yeah, and exactly.
You show them to the kids now and they look like, what on earth is this? It doesn't look like anything we've seen before.
Exactly. So I think that we were amongst the last generation to have a real childhood, you know, where it wasn't like overtaken by social media and this and that, and you know, we could just be children. You know, we had to use our imaginations, and we weren't on the computer all the time. We weren't looking at a screen all the time, and all. And it was, I think, at that time because innovation was slower. You know, so it was like, oh, a CD player has come out. Wow, you know, so now for a while we're just like completely enamored of these CD players. I remember the first time that I sat in a classmate's car and the car had power windows, and I was like, oh wow, we are in the future now, you know. And at that time it was like, yeah, I don't know if I'll ever have a car with power windows, you know, or oh wow, I got a CD player and that's so cool.
And now it's so matter of fact.
Exactly. I think that because the pace was slower then, so it was more exciting, you know, and it was more like you had a chance to savor everything and to, you know, and it wasn't like you didn't take things for granted maybe so much. And so I really wanted to capture that time, that era, and not just the tangible things about that era. Of course, there are so many things we could list, so many things I missed. But just that
playing in the mud, for example, like something so basic, which a lot of children, I think, even in cities, you know, like when I travel down to Mumbai, I feel that they don't understand the concept of let's just go out and play. This other thing is like, let's do a Roblox or a video game or whatever that you're doing. So yeah, that's something that I thought was really nice to bring about that for the children of today to read, that this is also what the 90s was. And then when you shifted into 2018, why did you choose these particular timelines?
Well, I chose 2018 because that's when I started writing the novel, and also, you know, after 2018 came 2019. After 2019 came 2020, and nobody wants to revisit that. So it seemed like a good moment also for the age of my second protagonist, Arya, and for her to come back after 1995 to India at that time. And I think there were so many changes. So I really wanted that anyone who reads the book, even if they're not from Delhi, that they should be able to get a sense of this changing city. You know, and Delhi is obviously a city which has changed many times. You know, it is that palimpsest of like one Delhi layered over another Delhi, over another Delhi, over another Delhi. I always feel like in Delhi, wherever you go, you sort of run into the past. And that's not just with monuments and things like that, but small things, you know, like you can be driving in a colony which is full of these new builder flats, and suddenly you'll see that Istri Wala in the corner.
Which you remember when you were younger.
You know, with this huge, like prehistoric kind of iron and all. And I think that it's sad that we're losing so many of these things. So Delhi is a city which has changed so many times. You know, it's been a city of emperors, it's been a city of invaders, it's been a city of accountants, a city of poets, but somehow nobody is able to conquer it. And it keeps growing and changing, and there's all those Delhis sort of just simmering under the surface. So I really wanted to capture
both the facets of Delhi in a way.
I mean, not that I can capture all the Delhis.
No, you can't. But even now,
that.
it's just very different timelines that you had chosen.
Yeah.
Which is why I said, you know, we must know why. 90s, of course, I understand because you're also a 90s kid. So how long did it take you? Because I remember reading one of your interviews where you did not finish it in a stretch despite Corona coming into our lives. It did take you a good 2-3 years.
Yeah, so I didn't write it at a stretch. So I started writing, I wrote the two timelines separately. So I wrote the 1995 timeline. I started around the second half of 2018. And then I think I finished it maybe in 5-6 months. And then in 2019, life got in the way. I got so busy, and I was like, I need to get to that book. And my mother would keep telling me, you need to finish that book. You need to finish that book. But then when 2020 hit, and we were all locked up in our houses, I was like, okay, if I don't finish this now, I am never going to have myself. So then I think it took me another maybe 6-7 months to write the second timeline, and then of course a little time to braid the two stories together. So yeah.
So do you think you evolved as a person while going through both the timelines or not really?
I think we all evolved during COVID, and it was definitely quite transformative for all of us. But I don't know how much of that came into this story, because I already had this story in my head, and I already knew that these are the beats of the story, and it's going to start here, it's going to end here. So I don't think that COVID really changed that. I think for my second book, whenever it is published, you'll see that COVID definitely changed a lot of my sensibilities, because it's a darker kind of story, and that's probably because of the time that
Okay, now I'm curious. I want to know, what is the second book about?
Well, without giving too much away.
Yeah, don't give too much. I know it's not published,
but it's a gothic fiction novel, and it's set in a fictional mountain town in the Himalayas. And I drew from my experience of, I spent a lot of time in many towns in the mountains. So I drew from all those places to create this one fictional town, which was a lot of fun, to create the whole mythology of this town, the geography of this town. And it's also about relationships, but let's see the flip side of relationships.
Okay, which is true actually, because the world today does have a lot of complexities in relationships. And considering that okay, I understand it's not really a love story, because love transcends, societies, parents, children, humans. So, what is love to you?
Love.
It's a tough one to define, I know, but if I were to ask you, what is?
I think love is the understanding that there is no separation between you and the other person, or the object of your love. Love is, well, sort of. I mean, it is a very Sufi kind of concept also. That's why, I was asked also that why did you want to write this, you have these characters who are from the Western world, but the love that you write about is a very Indian kind of love. And I think because we have a very different understanding of love in India. And there are words like ishq and mohabbat, which don't really have a proper translation in English. So I think that the way that we understand love is very different. And I wanted to bring in these characters from a completely different context and have them come to an understanding of that kind of love. And since you mentioned for the 40 rules of love, there's that one portion in it where he says that if the love has not changed you, then you have not loved enough. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's very true, because real love, I think, is very transformative. It is very all-consuming, and it's something which is not demanding, and it's not about, I'll fulfill my love, I'll be with this person or whatever. Because, well, I think because you have to learn to think of someone else, right, and not just yourself. And that's very important in love or in any relationship. Yeah, that there has to be that ability to put someone else before you, and that's why it has to change you. No, not sacrifice. I think it's just, how does one explain it? Love is just love, right? It's just about being able to understand that somebody else's feelings or what happens to them or what they are going through can matter to you more than your own. And I think if that's not there, then it's not really worth anything, right?
Thank you. That's a beautiful definition of love. So, are you looking at getting into writing full time now? Is this something that you want to pursue?
Full time in a way, yes, but in a way, no, also because there's so many things I want to do, and I just set up a new company and things like that. So I always, like I said, I've always been interested in so many different things. No, it's a company called Indophile, and we've just set it up to highlight unique cultural experiences from India. So how we always say that, oh, we're so lucky to live in India and we have this really rich heritage of art and music and literature. But if you really travel across India, which I've been very fortunate enough to do, there are so many things which people don't know about in general. There are instruments that you don't hear anything about. There are forms of dance that you don't hear about. There are cuisines, as we know, in every little corner of India, and every different community will have their own cuisine. Exactly. I think absolutely, and that's the beauty of India, that we have so much diversity, we have so much richness in India. So what I really would like to be able to bring some of these lesser known things to the fore, and to not just have the mainstream. Okay, everybody's familiar with sitar and santoor and tabla and this that, and all of those are beautiful, but there are so many more things. So I would really like to celebrate the beauty of our country.
That's really nice, considering we have Dhwani here. Dhwani, please, hi, from Prabha Khaitan, and I think this is really exciting because that is what our foundation also does. We get down into grassroots India to bring to fore or to bring to light, the culture, the ethos of every different distinct state, which is one thing that, say, the foundation here does, is that they focus on the food, the culture, the clothes, for example, the dialect, the language of every state that they go to. So I think it's really exciting to hear about Indo-Feel, right? Yeah, Indo-File. So many, many congratulations to you for that. Okay, coming back into your writing, do you have like a dedicated time, space?
I don't know. A dedicated time, not really. When I am working actively on something, like when I'm writing one of my manuscripts, then I do try to make sure that I get at least 1 or 2 hours in a day to just write. But I'm a very unstructured writer, so don't take any advice from me about this, because this is just what works for me. That I feel like sometimes when I'm trying to write something, it's like a like a tap which has like a clogged kind of tap, where you say, "Acha, usse pani nahi nikal raha hai," and then I keep working at it, keep working at it, keep working at it, and then suddenly, like drip, 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 it comes out, and then suddenly all of it comes out at once. So that is what my writing style is. I know a lot of people say, and this works for them, that they have a lot of discipline with their writing.
I know, for sure. Between khane mein kya banao and idhar jana ye karo, you just get used to writing in kind of spurts. And
yeah, pockets of time.
Pockets of time. Yeah, that's really nice. So what next? What is it that you're looking to do after this?
Well, I have my second manuscript complete, so
that's absolutely complete.
Yeah, the first draft of this is complete, but as any writer knows, your manuscript goes through so many drafts. But
the editing really kills, doesn't it?
Well, it does, but I used to be very intimidated by editing, because it was like, oh my god, I have written this, now am I ever going to be able to top this? Am I, I'll have to change it, or I'll have to delete something. But over time, I've come to really appreciate the editing process, because it's still easier to work with something if you have something there. I think that's still easier than like a blank piece of paper or a blank screen where kuch nahi likha hai.
That dreaded blank screen, my goodness. Sometimes you just stare at it for like days on end.
Absolutely.
It happens to you too.
It definitely has happened to me, and then I have to work. But with writer's block, I really feel, at least for me, the only way to deal with it is to write through it. Because basically, what is writer's block? It's also just the fear of, I'm going to write something that's not good enough. And if you accept that, okay, maybe I'll write something that's not good. Maybe I'll write something that's absolute trash today, but I'll write.
But you're right. That's very important.
And then if you just keep at it, then sometime, at least in my experience, you find that, if you sift through that trash that you may have written, you'll find some gems in there which will actually be worthwhile and useful.
Yeah, I always say this. You don't have to be motivated to write, to sit and write, but you have to be disciplined. Even if you do it for like 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day, it's just something that gets you into, I need to sit to write. Whatever it is, like you rightly said, even if it's something that's rubbish that doesn't make sense maybe the next day, but at least you've written it down.
Well, it's like any muscle. You need to exercise it constantly, so yeah.
Yeah, I know. We're all guilty as charged on that. Okay, so can we have, there's just a line in this book, I think, or in one of your interviews that I read, and I just love that, and I have to share it with our audience here. It says that in between trying to remember you and trying to forget you, I've spent an entire lifetime thinking about you. Is that a part of the book?
Yes, it's definitely part of the book, and I don't want to give away spoilers.
I know, but it's so beautiful that I had to share this one line, and I said before we ask you to read a small excerpt, this line I read it and I was like, oh my god, I had to read it like 5 times over. Beautiful line.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Can I please ask you to read a small excerpt?
Sure.
Your favorite part of the book?
Well, I don't know what is my favorite part of the book, but let me find something that...
Okay, which of the two timelines is closer to you? 95?
Yeah, I would have to say, just because, yeah, and also because I find the story of Will and Leela very compelling, and so maybe if I had to choose a favorite,
so then you choose something for us in that timeline. I'm going to take the liberty of assuming most of us here, minus Dhwani, are 90s babies.
Okay, fine. Alright, 1 second.
You are too, okay. I was going to ask you to do a little one-act play, but then I said that you're going to kill me to ask you. Considering you've written, directed, acted, and produced, or maybe you could for us. Okay, next time.
Okay, so this is an excerpt from October 1995, and this is the protagonist Will. This is his experience. I discovered still more Delhis after the rigors of the monsoon around the festive seasons of Dussehra and Diwali. I couldn't remember their backstories, something about that old conflict between good and evil that India had turned into 1,000 different tales like tentacles growing out of an octopus. There was the city of the Pandals, where Kevin, Johan and I gorged on spicy, oily Bengali delicacies with Rajiv and his wife Vidya, amidst a sea of vermilion and blazing saris. We stayed for the grand spectacle of the Aarti, the cacophony of bells and drums reverberating through the park like the splitting of tectonic plates, and had to shake ourselves out of an overpowering stupor when it was over. I wasn't surprised to see a bony lad near us fall to his knees with tears streaming down his face. We went to Rajiv's place afterwards, piling into his capacious ambassador, and I found myself drawn to Dinanath, his somber father, whose bald spherical face and glasses gave him the appearance of a retired gnome, someone whose expression had frozen in place a long time ago. He sat silently chomping through most of the evening, and it was only towards the end that a chance remark about the changing zeitgeist nudged him out of his shell, his body decompressing like a stress ball. He spoke to me of yet another Delhi, fragrant with the exhilaration of climbing mango trees, drinking Vimto, and swimming in the Yamuna before it had turned into a toxic sump. He remembered New Delhi when it was still new, and Old Delhi when its spirit hadn't been hacked to pieces like its Havelis. I was beset by the urge to bottle up his memories, to suspend them in formaldehyde so they wouldn't dissipate. I found myself wondering how many Delhis had slipped through the cracks of history, how many still hovered like ghosts trapped under the surface of the indistinguishable palimpsest that constituted the city, waiting to be freed and to reveal themselves in brief flashes of immortality. Half as old as time. No, Delhi was older than time. We walked to the car, sated with good food and good company, and I wished Leela was with us, but she was occupied by her visiting Swamiji. I came abreast of Dinanath. Enjoy it now, Mr. Rhodes, he said suddenly. Enjoy your Delhi. Someday, this too will be in the past. I thought of the bungalows and the gentle curves of the roundabouts, the elliptical skyline still unmarred by ungainly spikes of concrete, and was seized by a sudden premonition of loss, a vision of the present submerged in the tombs of dynasties past. It was as though a macabre spectre had breathed into our environment. In the future, you will speak of what happened now, he continued, slowly wiping his glasses on his shirt. By then, it will be what happened then. You are young, you won't understand. Every moment has already become the past by the time we are aware of it. That is the catch about the past. It is always slipping further away from us. It is already much further away than it was. Perhaps it was residual sensitivity from the Aarti, or the effect of his muted sorrow. The sense of foreboding lingered, and uneasiness about things to come. I got into the car and turned back to look at him, but he was already gone.
Wow. I'm sure you really piqued our interest here for our audience to pick up the book and read and then get back to you on it. Thank you so much. I have two more questions for you. One is definitely on the cover of this book. I think it's magical, like just absolutely out of imagination. So how did you come up? Did you design it because you are creative?
Yeah, I always knew that I wanted the cover to look like this because this is actually the pivotal scene in the book when Will meets Leela for the first time. And this is the sort of vision that I had when I was on a walk in Delhi in the monsoon many years ago. And I had this vision of this scene, and that is what really sparked the idea for this whole story.
So much greenery with just this lady in...
Yeah, and just that atmosphere, that sort of misty, sort of, otherworldly kind of atmosphere. And of course,
it's a very Alice in Wonderland feel, honestly. Like a very distinct, magical, beautiful, surreal kind of feel.
I think that it's about like a magical moment in an ordinary life and how that changes everything.
And how that changes everything. So, and what about the name, The Scent of Falling Stars? Beautiful name, by the way.
Thank you so much. Well, actually, when I was writing it, the only name that I thought of was Molsari, which is the flowers, which play a very important role in this story. But I felt like maybe Molsari wouldn't work so well as the title of a book. I wasn't sure how many people would be able to understand it or whatever. So for a long time, I was like, I have that, clogged tap. No, I can't think of any other title. Nothing. No other title works. And then over time, suddenly I was like, oh, okay, maybe this. Because, the flowers, they have the shape of a star. So in that sense, like a fallen star. And also that mystique of stars, which is that there's a star is something which is, it's so many light years away that by the time you see it, it's already changed. It's sort of, you've already lost it. That star may have, exploded and disappeared by now.
Somehow it is magical because I think as kids we all grew up to just looking up into the stars. Like when someone passes, you look at the star, they're right there. Twinkle, twinkle, little star. And right from then, we just kind of looked at stars as something that's really magical, light years away, beautiful, something that gives you hope in a way.
Yeah, and also the scent of those fallen stars, because as we all know, scent is so strongly linked to memory. Scent is so strong, it's so evocative. So I always found the scent of these flowers, the Molsari flowers, like a lot of Indian flowers, to be very evocative and to sort of, I always felt that they sort of captured a different world, a different era, and that plays, when you read the book, you'll see it plays a very important role. So that's how the title came about.
I kept it to, meeting you before reading it. I have gone through it in a very quick way, but I did want to meet you because, like I said, that I just feel that when you open the book now that we've had this conversation, we know a little bit about you. It's just those little facets of you that you find inside. I find it really exciting, and I'm sure our audience will too. So, yes, I'm getting my time for 5 minutes. So, before we open up for questions to the audience, I want to say thank you. Thank you so much, and lots of congratulations for your debut book.
Thank you.
And wish you all the very best for the future.
Thank you so much, and I'm so sorry again that I got late and we couldn't start on time, but I'm really glad and so happy to be here and to be able
We are really, really happy to have you as well. Can we please open up for questions?
I think that was a scintillating conversation. Yes.
Well, it ends up being specific times during the day because, you end up being free at a particular time, or like after lunch, I used to sit and write a lot, but sometimes I would write late at night also. So it wasn't a specific time, but yes, with the schedule of the day, you do end up having these pockets of time to write.
Secondly, while writing a book, sometimes the day or during that time when you're writing the book, does it disturb you that what you are writing is not finished or you want to add on? Does it affect the other work that you have and you are doing? Does it affect you?
Definitely, because I think when you're in that zone of writing and you've sort of been possessed by this story, then that's all you can do, kind of inhabiting the world that you're writing about. You're inhabiting those characters, and so it is very all-consuming. And as I always say that then maybe I'm not such a fun person to be around for other people because my attention is just on my writing and on my story. But I guess that's the hazards of doing anything creative.
Thank you, Raviji.
But I love the way you just admitted, I don't like math, science, I'm not good at it. I mean, you know what you're good at, you know what you're not, let's just go ahead and move on.
Well, if I don't admit it, what if I find myself in a situation where I have to start, somebody expects me to start doing some maths or something like that, I'm like, no, let me preempt this. Yeah, don't call on me for that.
Hi, Aishwarya ma'am. Myself, Prashant. The inference which I could draw, you are a very intelligent person with cross-domain expertise. You penned down so much about Delhi. I have lived in Delhi for 25 years and I really love that place. Your writing reminded me of Mir.
Thank you.
जो शहर था,
Big compliment.
आलम में इंतखाब रहने वाले हम उसी उजड़े दयार के. Delhi is a city of paradoxes and multiple worlds exist there. How do you find Delhi now? Do you still love it? That's my question.
Well, since you've lived in Delhi, you know that that's a very complex answer. Do we love Delhi? Delhi is such an infuriating city in so many ways. You know, it's a very, but it is a very infuriating city. The pollution is so bad, the weather is so bad, the traffic is so bad, it's so congested. I love old buildings and I love history. But all our old architecture has pretty much been destroyed. You know, you can't find. I was looking for a Haveli once for a work project with my partner, and we just couldn't find one that we could use for our project. So there's so many things about Delhi which are very frustrating, but I do love it, like you. There's something about this city which is completely impossible and which stresses us out and all of that. But somewhere, just when you think that I can't bear it any longer, something about it lures you back in. So I think it's a very magnetic city, and it's a place which I feel, and I lived in Canada for a year, for instance, and all that. But I found I couldn't bear to live away from Delhi, despite everything.
It just grows on you. Like a Delhi girl or a Delhi person would always say Delhi. I feel I'm between Delhi and Bombay because I'm from Bombay. I always say that there is a divide between even a Delhi and a Bombay. That, you know, if you're a Bombay person, that's it. I can't do Delhi. And if you're a Delhi person, it's like, no way, Bombay just doesn't work for me. But I think that somewhere in Delhi also, I'm curious, there's so many Havelis and monuments, you didn't find anything. I know they're not kept, but you didn't find anything that really worked for you.
Well, monuments there are a lot of, but Havelis, like just a typical Haveli, you know, which would be like a residential Haveli or something, most of them have been splintered, you know, because there are generations of families and there's fighting and there's, you know, it's been partitioned and things like that. So that is really a big problem. And of course, a lot of them, like you'll find Havelis in Chandni Chowk, for instance, but in other parts of Delhi where we also had a lot of Havelis, you don't really find anything anymore, so yeah.
In a way, it would be sad. I wish they were kept better.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think you love or you hate Delhi.
Yeah, that's exactly like that Bombay Delhi divide.
Sometimes both.
Absolutely. The traffic is hated, but otherwise it's love.
Sorry? Yeah, I was in Bombay recently for a few events, and I don't think that there was a lot of love.
Yeah, it's like, no, there is nothing like Bombay. So, yeah. Any more questions, please?
Anybody else? As we wrap up this intriguing evening, I, Pooja Khanna, Ehsaas woman of Dehradun, want to sincerely thank our distinguished author, Aishwarya Jha. Your insights and the stories you've shared have truly touched our hearts. I would also like to extend my gratitude to the moderator, Pooja Marwah. Your seamless and masterful guidance throughout the conversation added a lot of depth to the discussion. Thank you both for making this evening so memorable. And at the heart of today's event, our audience. Thank you so much for being so enthusiastic and curious. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our associate and hospitality partner, Hyatt Regency Dehradun Resort and Spa, and media partner, Dainik Jagran, and the relentless support of Ehsaas women of Dehradun. Prabha Khaitan Foundation promotes cross-cultural understanding and appreciation. A mosaic of cultures forms the backbone of a nation, contributing to its vibrancy and richness. This is to support our ongoing efforts to foster unity and appreciation of the rich cultural heritage across India's diverse states. As a token of our appreciation, we are delighted to present Ms. Jha with an ethnic Kantha stole from Bengal, a symbol of the rich cultural heritage we celebrate here today. Kantha is a centuries-old tradition of stitching patchwork cloth from rags, which evolved from the thrift of rural women in the Bengali region of the subcontinent today. and the eastern Indian states of West Bengal, Orissa and Bangladesh. It can be traced back 500 years as a way the Bengalis recycled old saris, dhotis and household textiles. By using the Kanta technique, they upcycled their old textiles into quilts for warmth and comfort. Now I would like to call upon Major Ravi Randev to facilitate Ms. Jha. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
This is not a medal. This is an award for all the.
Thank you so much and good night everyone. Before you leave, please take a complimentary copy of The Scent of the Fallen Stars by Aishwarya Jha. You can get it autographed by the author. Thank you so much for being such wonderful audience. Thank you.